an unboxing today, but a quick shoe battle, a little boot battle. We used to do these from time to time on the main channel. We used to do a little bit on this channel. And this just turned it into kind of like unboxings and just free form, me rambling on about random stuff, and I'm okay with it. But for this, I thought it'd be kind of an interesting video to compare two of my collaborations because they are similar, but very distinct. And so I just thought it'd be kind of a cool video to sit down and talk about it. And I honestly thought I'd have to make this video because I honestly anticipated people being like, hey, you said this was a sneaker made using good shit, and now you're saying this is made using good shit. But to my shock and surprise, people I think understood the difference in the concept initially and understood they were distinct and different enough. And I don't think a single person proved us wrong. I think we are the very first people at scale to do a leather Strobel stitch sneaker that just happens to be like all leather. You know, there's a couple of spots that are not, like the foam and stuff. The outsole's not leather, but you know, within reason. You know, and yeah, it was really surprised that we didn't get more backlash, being like, you said this was the best, you said that was the best. And I think that's a good sign that we're communicating the values that we're trying to bake into each of these products. And to me, it's an indicator that we are truly making things unique and different and distinct, because there just didn't seem to be a lot of room for complaining on that one, which is always a good sign. I gotta lower this. You know, it's a good sign that you're onto something and you're doing something really unique and different and better when the full internet is like, I don't really have much to say. And now this video's comments will be flooded full of people like, well, actually, you know, but that's the game we play. It's half the fun. It's because really all the comments are and feedback, and even all the way down to like trolling and hating. It's kind of the immune system of the internet, and I think it's vital. And this could be its own video in and of itself, because I think I have a unique perspective on haters and shitty comment sections and stuff like that. That I think if more creators had that perspective, they'd be like, oh, actually, we kind of need these to keep us going and keep us straight and keep us like honest with what we're doing. And it really improves the product you're presenting, not just like, not the physical product, but like the product of a video. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get into it. So how are these boots different? How are these shoes different? Well, clearly this is the SMUGS made by Goral. Sneakers made using good shit. It's our attempt to make a boot sneaker. That's the whole concept. That's the positioning of it. And that's what I think we achieved. The KOIOs, on the other hand, this was an attempt to make the first true full leather sneaker. True being a true sneaker construction like Strobel stitch, and full leather is like every important component that can be made out of leather is made out of leather. And so they're similar, you know, they're almost like cousins to each other, because in order to make a sneaker act like a boot, you have to make it chock full of leather. In order to make the first full leather sneaker with a leather Strobel board, you mostly make out a sneaker. But what's interesting is they feel and perform very differently, even though they both have a cup sole, a rubber cup sole, even though they both have a veg tan insole, and even though they're a handmade shoe by a higher end brand, they feel and act very different because of how they're built. So I think number one, obviously, like the upper and the pattern, low top versus high top. I like a high top, makes sense for like the boot shoe kind of hybrid thing. I just like high tops generally, especially having like little ankles. I just like high tops, and versus a more small, like attractive, sleek, aesthetic sneaker like KOIO's. Like that's what KOIO does. It's like these are like fancy, like nice, almost like dress sneakers that you can wear casually. And so where do the differences actually come in when it comes to materials and quality materials? Well, obviously the SMUGS are made out of like super thick leather. It's like 2.2 to 2.5 millimeters thick, if I remember, oh gosh, correctly. Yeah, like 2.4. This is Horween's Chrome XL. It's a really oils and tallow and conditioner infused leather, so much so that it's almost a little sticky to the touch. It develops a bloom over time where you get like a little white haze as that wax and oils solidify on the surface if you don't wear them a ton. And it's a really hardy leather. It's like a self-polishing, a self-conditioning leather. It's not a work boot leather. It's not a dress leather. It's just a really nice leather that can be used in anything from like super high-end boots to sneakers to anything like that. Versus the KOIOs, this is that 1.5 calf skin, 1.5 millimeter calf skin, where instead of cow skin, it's calf skin. It's the baby's skin. And because of that, it's a lot finer grain pattern. It's a lot finer fiber structure. And so you get, at these thinner thicknesses, more of that full cross section. So you get a leather that acts more like a thicker leather at a thinner thickness. And you get a lot like finer grain pattern when you do have a pigment on top, so it's not going to separate as much. So stronger leather, it doesn't stretch as much, especially comparing it to more like your average sneaker leather with Adidas and Nike, which usually is like a heavily sanded down to where you almost have no grain or no grain, and then they put a heavy plastic or rubber or some sort of synthetic coating on top with pigment as well. And so you can look at these from the outside like, well, they look the same, but then you look at the macro shots, you're like, oh, that's clearly a difference. You look at the cross section, oh, that clearly is like calf skin, higher in the cross section, tighter fiber, and then like half of these cheaper shoes, they're not even full leather. There's like 1 or 2 panels that are leather. And so obviously more towards casual, more high-end, like finer dressing. This is more towards boots, not work boots per se, but more like the boot world, the heritage boot world. And so they're distinct in that way. Then you look at the lining, obviously the SMUGS, the whole concept is make it as much like a boot as possible. And you can see on this Nix boot that I brought just as an example, they're only lined in the vamp most of the time. You can get fully lined ones and stuff, but just the traditional way of doing it is allowing that really thick, heavy leather that makes up that boot, make up the boot. Instead of needing to line it because it's too thin or it's too cheap, you just get a really nice, heavy, thick piece of leather, and it's almost unbeatable. And so that's why we just completely minimize the lining as much as possible, because there's still some other sneakers out there, like Thursday has a minimal lining in one of their sneakers, but it's a little skeleton lining. There's Crown Northampton, the other Goral stuff, they still have some that are a little less lined, but this is as much of an unlined boot as you can make while still and still make it comfortable. And that's why it acts and feels more like a boot, and that fits the positioning perfectly. Versus the KOIOs, obviously fully lined. It's just all the way through to the toe, the tongue, the side panels here, the flesh out counter. That's a lot more similar to a dress boot, like this Beckett and Simonon I brought in. You can see this is fully lined. You look at Alden's are fully lined. Most of the Grant Stones are fully lined. And those are more of like your dress boot style. So fits it. And then what's next? You look at the insoles, they're just insoles. One's Ortholite, one's the Goral one, but they're removable, so it's not, I don't stress it that much. One super big similarity is the thing that you're actually standing on for the structural piece, not the insole, but the lasting material, or some people call it an insole as well, is both of these are leather. The Goral, we've got it's like, I think it's 3 millimeters, 3 to 3.5 millimeters veg tan leather insole, and then underneath you can see it has a little bit of fiberboard. And for the KOIOs, you've just got one big simple slab of 3 to 4 millimeter veg tan leather that doesn't have that layer underneath, that doesn't have any filling like this one does. And so you get a similar feel and durability underfoot, but in a different discipline of making boots and shoes, because you can see here, and part of what makes Goral, and what's really put them on the map is they're the first people to really make a Blake stitch sneaker at scale. And a Blake stitch, you can see that stitch right here. That's what that stitch is. And what that does is, you can see the cross section. The way they make these shoes is they take the upper and they wrap it underneath the lasting board. And then they, instead of just letting it be glued there, like you see like a lot of the other sneakers, they actually sew it together. And that's a lot more similar to dress boots. It's a lot more similar to even, I specifically chose this one because these Pacific Northwest brands used to do a Blake stitch on the inside, the Blake Rapid stitch, and they've since omitted it because they found that it didn't really add that much more durability, and it just added some potential pressure points underneath your foot and an extra step in manufacturing. But they used to do a little Blake stitch on the inside. The better example is this Beckett Simonon. You can see, I probably should grab the other side that probably already has this torn out. But you can see that Blake stitch in there. And that does the same thing. As that's wrapped underneath, that stitching pinches those layers together and sews them together, so that when you go to resole it, when you really beat them up, you're not going to delaminate, you're not going to get those layers to separate because it's held on with glue and stitching. And that's more like a boot, right? Versus the KOIOs, this is your classic sneaker construction, as you can see from this Stan Smith, where you've got the upper, and instead of it being tucked underneath, it stops right at the footbed. And then this lasting material right here is directly sewn to that upper. So if this is your footbed and that lasting material, instead of being tucked under, it stops right there. And then the Strobel stitch is that stitch that joins the two. And you can see it that wraps all the way around here. Same thing with the KOIOs. So that's why it was so unique, because most of the time you see this kind of construction, it's in cheaper sneakers because it's fast, it's easy, it's flexible, it's breathable, it's affordable, and it fits perfectly with sneakers. And that's why 90% of the sneakers on the market are Strobel stitched. But that doesn't mean it's a bad style construction, because if you upgrade the materials like you do here with this veg tan leather, instead of this shoe wearing out and throwing it away and wearing through because it's cheaper materials in the lining and the outsole's cheap and then this all fell on the inside, we maximized everything so that there's fewer fail points and the integral parts that really make this shoe what it is and hold it together, like that Strobel stitch, like the lasting board, like the materials are upgraded so much that you almost get a sneaker that should act a lot more similar to like a boot sneaker, but it's going to have a lot of the features and attributes of a regular sneaker. And I think that's why I think it's sold out already. So this is just like almost for fun for me, and kind of like flesh out the ideas and like kind of bring you guys along and show you the differences between the two, because I just find it interesting that these are so similar, yet we came at completely different angles, because for the KOIOs, we came from the perspective of a sneaker to make the ultimate sneaker. With the SMUGS, we came from the perspective of boots to make the ultimate sneaker. And then you think you would end up in the middle, but as you can see, completely different construction styles, completely different thicknesses, uses of materials, different sizes, heights, thicknesses of materials, purpose of materials. And so you would assume that you would have ended up in the same spot, but then what we really ended up with was two really distinct and unique boots and shoes really, that nobody's ever done before in this way, that you really can't get from anybody else, that you can't really find all these unique features and benefits rolled into one shoe because no one's done them before. And that's the stuff I geek out of. That's the stuff I love the most. And really the last thing is the cup soles, but they're almost identical. You know, they're very similar thicknesses, durometers, and uses. They have the sidewall stitch. They're glued as well. They're part of the upgraded materials, because as you can see on the inside here, this is a lot cheaper rubber in these Stan Smiths. It's columned all the way through, which is not a bad thing. You know, these columns, what they do is it gives you squish without needing foam. But the problem with cheaper sneakers is they don't structure the heel. They don't structure the forefoot. And so what I mean by that is, over time, even though you're still going to have an insole in there that's going to take some of the squish away, you're going to get uneven spots in your heel and in your forefoot because you're not compressing all those columns equally. Your heel is going to make like low spots and high spots. And if you look at higher end sneakers, in the heel they'll have a compressed cardboard, they'll have some leather, they'll have a rand of some kind, so that you get equal squish on all the columns to prevent like a lumpy feel underneath your foot. And same thing in the forefoot. If you don't have a more premium material, even fiberboard or even especially leather, you know, that's going to compress those columns equally versus just a cheap fiberboard or a cheap lasting material. You're going to get those high spots and low spots. And so you can see with both these shoes, the veg tan on the KOIOs is plenty to compress those equally, and you've got the insole in there. And then the Gorals, you've got that extra layer of fiberboard and that feeling, which is I think it's wool from like Germany or Italy or something. And I think that's it. I think that's pretty much the full breakdown of them, and maybe a couple questions that you might want to know. Which is more comfortable? I think the Gorals are actually more comfortable. You have just a little bit more squish under your foot. They're going to break in a little bit more because you've got a couple more layers, more separating you from the ground. At the same time though, if you value flexibility, if you value lightweight, if you value ground feel, you might find these more comfortable. And especially if you don't like the high top, you don't like all the heavy layers, and you don't like that rigidness, you might find the KOIOs more comfortable. But for me, I think that just because of those extra layers, the Gorals are just a little bit more comfortable. Which one do I anticipate wearing more? I'll probably wear the SMUGS more. I'm just a more high top guy. But now that we've proven this concept, you know, we can do this with a bunch of silhouettes. I wanted to start with the white sneaker for obvious reasons. Like, everyone's been begging, like, where's your white sneaker? Do the white sneaker. We need your white sneaker. And so I was like, we got to do the white sneaker. And so we did. But now, especially after some testing with that initial batch of the 300, we'll get an idea of how well this actually works, if it works, where the flaws are, how we need to improve it for the future, and then we can start putting it on different platforms, which would be so cool. What about, which is going to last the longest? I think your Gorals are going to last longer. You know, you're paying a little bit more for some more of the handmade techniques, the more materials, and I think these would probably last longer. But, keep in mind, they're comparing them to each other. If you compare KOIOs with the Stan Smith or Nikes or anything, they're going to outlast. I don't know for sure. Maybe this is a test we could do. It's like make one out of really terrible materials and one out of premium materials and see how much longer a premium one lasts. But for me, I would guess, like a safe guess would be at least twice as long as a cheap pair of sneakers, not counting the resole, because then you can get them resold. And that's one of the plays with these. And some brands will do this where they're like, it's an investment up front and you pay it off over several years, you get the resoles, it's a better way to do it. And there's a case to be made for that, because if you want like the same uppers, you don't want to deal with it, and you can rotate 2 boots and shoes, there's a case for it, and you can get close to recouping your costs compared to buying brand new sneakers every year, but not so much that it's, to me, like the biggest selling point of high quality footwear. If you're just getting high quality footwear because I'm going to save money in the long run, you're probably not. Like the goal would be to break even. Like that would be like, oh, we did it, we broke even. Like I finally I justified getting some like really nice heritage goods. But more than anything, that's just a way to justify it. Because if you can even cover, even for me, like if I ended up spending twice as much on high quality footwear over a 5-year period or even a 10-year period, I would gladly do it, because it's not just a 1-to-1 trade. Because wearing 10 of these and 1 of these, it's just an example, that doesn't mean 10 times less, caveats. You're going to be more comfortable in a premium sneaker. You're going to be more supported in a more premium like boot. You're going to be more comfortable. It's like all the things that really make high quality footwear what it is what you're going to actually experience. And then the bonus is just the fact that you can resole them, that you can take care of them, you can condition them, you can get them to last several times longer, and you'll get close to recovering some of your costs. And maybe I'm wrong. Like some of you guys that maybe have a certain style of like really extending your footwear, to let me know in the comments. But I don't think, for me, that's the main selling point of these. It's more of like what you actually get for that price, and then you can justify it over an extended period of time by getting that durability out of it. And what else would you guys want to know? Which did we sell more of? Obviously the Gorals, because we only had 300 available of these, and we did a bunch of launches of the Gorals this year. It's just one of those things too, where it's like we're never trying to like bake in fake scarcity. It's just like I'll sell as many as like we can, because it helps fund the channel, it helps fund our next steps in the business, and it's more of concern of we don't want to overwhelm this other company's entire manufacturing for like 3 months just so that they can make shoes and boots that we're going to get a cut of instead of their own stuff they get their full cut of. It's also, we're not trying to take over the industry. We're not trying to start like never buy Nikes or anything else, only buy these collaborations. I double down on trying to emphasize and re-highlight competing stuff. This is maybe not the best example because it's 2 competing of my own collaborations. But we do, like, especially the barefoot stuff, we're always trying to highlight stuff. We're highlighting the competition, because I'm a firm believer in a rising tide lifts all ships, even with your competition. Because if the industry's progressing, the industry's moving, and you're pushing each other and you're going for it, it's gonna just lift everything. And that's how I view this, and that's what's fun about it. And I think that's everything. So, I think that's it. Just want to do a quick sit-down video, do a quick comparison, just so you have all the quick, in quotations, it's a Rose Anvil 2 video. Just so you have all the information and you don't have to go watch 5 different videos and unboxings to get all the details. That's everything you need to know. And they're probably not even available by the time you're watching this. So if you want a pair of these, they're probably sold out, but check the description just in case. And if they are sold out, get on the limited edition email list, because that is a specific email list where we send you only new products, big sales, and product collaboration drops. And the beautiful aspect of that is you get early access, because we're just trying to prevent this thing where like people go in and gobble them all up. And we want like the people that really care about the channel, that are passionate, that are engaged, to get the first shot and get first in line. And so we send early access to everyone on that list. We send specs, we send the how to wears, we send like exclusive like hiking content, break-in content, and you get notified well ahead of everyone else when they're gonna be dropping, and you get the early access so you can guarantee a pair. So check those out below, and thank you guys for supporting these collaborations, because all the big announcements we've probably already started announcing by now is a huge part of that is because of your guys' support of these collaborations. Because you'd be shocked at how little money there is in YouTube, and it's only from this stuff and like our handmade products that we're able to destroy brand new things every single week and grow a business to a point where we're capable of doing everything that we're going to be doing in 2025. So thank you guys. Huge shout out to Goral, huge shout out to KOIO, and all the other brands we work with, like JK, NYX, Whites, all the other brands I'm forgetting. Jim Green, obviously. Yeah, everyone that I'm forgetting. So thank you guys, and thanks to the brands, and I think that's it. See ya.